Now, your forecast first, sponsored by Matex Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing.
All right, good evening to you on this very quiet, mild, and comfortable Thursday evening with our weather as temperatures remain really mild. Once again today, up to near 70 in a lot of areas, but we're cooling down a little bit in Champaign. It's 54, still holding on to 63 down in Effingham, and we're going to find these temperatures staying mild again tonight with readings only dipping down to near 50 for an overnight low. I have got a string of 70-degree days ahead. That's going to make for an incredible weekend of weather. But those changes, which will come in next week, those are going to be some that you may not like so much. We'll talk about it when we come back. WCIA 3 News starts right now.
Now on WCIA 3 News.
COVID-19 is surging and temperatures will eventually start to drop, where hundreds are having to worry whether they'll have electricity to stay at home. Plus, have you been tested for the coronavirus? Why going to vote may just be the reason that you need to.
And there's a new call for random drug testing. But high school athletes may have that ahead when they return to play.
You're watching your local news leader. This is WCIA 3 News at 6.
This is really a public health crisis. We cannot shut off people's power or water during COVID.
But she says it's happening anyway, and she wants to make it stop. Good evening. I'm Paul Cicchini.
And I'm Jennifer Roscoe. Hundreds of people in Urbana are experiencing utility shutoffs. That's despite Ameren doing a voluntary moratorium because of the pandemic. The company said temporarily they wouldn't shut the power off. The problem is that doesn't protect everyone. WCIA 3's Courtney Bunting is live now. So, Courtney, who does it protect?
Well, Jennifer, you have to fall under very specific categories. One of them is if you're facing what's considered a medical hardship by Ameren. Another is if you call them and you explain that you're facing a specific hardship because of COVID-19. And third, if you're considered LIHEAP eligible, in other words, low income, then you also fall under that category of people who will not face shutoffs. However, I talked to some today who said they had a shutoff anyway.
The governor has to enact a statewide moratorium on shutoffs. It needs to come from the state because the voluntary is not working.
And a lot of people are paying the price. Danielle Chenoweth with Cunningham Township has a list of people facing power shutoffs. She's been going door to door to warn them.
I talked to a woman in her early 80s who lives alone. She was about to have her power shut off yesterday if I had not knocked on her door. I talked to a woman who is dealing with domestic violence. She has a lot of things going on right now. She's probably not opening up her bills.
Chenoweth says Cunningham Township can help people with bills, but she's concerned many don't know how to access that help. And that this time of year, they're especially vulnerable.
They turned my power off at 9 o'clock in the morning when I had already told them and set up a payment plan.
Cedric Robinson is supposed to fall under the low-income category, protected from shutoffs right now from Ameren. But they shut off his power without him even knowing it. Luckily, the township was able to help out.
They were able to scrape up some funds to go ahead and cover my bill and get it turned back on within an hour.
But Chenoweth says it shouldn't have to get to that point.
If we have a voluntary moratorium, why are we seeing so many people having their power shut off right before we have the temperatures dip into freezing?
I reached out to Ameren and I asked them what people should do in these types of situations, and they said they couldn't talk about anyone's particular situation, but urged anyone who cannot pay their bill to call them and they'll try to work out a plan to fit their particular situation. I did talk to Robinson and he said he could not get a clear answer about why exactly his power was shut off in particular. Live in Urbana, Courtney Bunting, WCIA 3, your local news leader.
Courtney, thank you. Now, in March, there was a moratorium on all disconnections across the state. They were allowed to start again in mid-August, but Ameren agreed to not start until September 24th, unless people fall under those specific categories we mentioned before. This is a follow-up. The governor says police will get involved if businesses don't comply with the state's COVID-19 restrictions. Pritzker has requested that state police respond. That starts with a verbal warning, followed with a written warning and order. Finally, as a last resort, a ticket will be given to the business. Many Central Illinois restaurants and bars have already said they will continue to stay open.
It's a grim milestone again in Illinois. 1,000 mark for coronavirus-related deaths. 97 were in the last 24 hours. Several were in the counties of Coles, DeWitt, Douglas, Macon, and Vermilion counties. There are more than 9,900 new cases. That's another record. That makes over 447,000 infections. The state's 7-day positivity rate is now up to 9.1%. Now, hundreds of thousands of people across Illinois turned out to vote on Tuesday. And now health officials want to make sure they didn't catch COVID at the polls. IDPH Director Dr. Nganze Ezike is encouraging people who spent time in line at the polls to get tested. She's using the same advice that's been issued for months in this state. If you spend time in line at the polls and feel like you could have been exposed, wait a few days and then get tested.
I'd also like to encourage people who participated in recent campaign rallies, worked in polling places, stood in line to vote where maybe they couldn't maintain the 6 foot of distance, anyone who participated in recent protests or any other recent events, please get tested.
Election Day fell at a pivotal time in the state's efforts to try and curb the latest COVID surge. Every region in the state is under increased mitigations for COVID. Now, the difference in coronavirus cases across the area also applies to school districts. In Coles County, the Charleston and Mattoon districts resumed in-person learning. Charleston did so this week, Mattoon on February 19th. That's in contrast to Villa Grove schools. The Douglas County district moved to remote learning after a surge of cases in the area. The Taylorville School District has more than a dozen staffers quarantined. That district plans to move to hybrid learning next week.
Illinois Food Bank have tested positive for COVID-19. The Public Health District is conducting contact tracing and the affected areas have been cleaned. But the president and CEO says that won't stop them from serving those in need. Jim Heyer says the priority is to continue to provide emergency food help. He says there's a significant increase in demand. One group in Urbana has a goal of ending homelessness in the city. And thanks to a new tax levy, they have more money to help them do it. It was approved last night, and it gives money to Cunningham Township. It'll go toward rental assistance, emergency food, and emergency housing. We talked to a woman who used to be homeless about how Cunningham Township impacted her life.
There was no judgment. They were there with loving arms. They gave my family a chance, and because of them, I now have secure housing. I have a job now. You know, it's like everything is falling into place.
That adds about $3 a month for the average homeowner. That'll raise about $500,000 a year, and that will start in May.
Now, the votes continue to be counted. We'll look at how close the nation is coming to have a president-elect.
Also tonight.
The goal is always to prevent future illicit drug use.
High school sports have been put on hold while one district is looking ahead and talking drug testing.
And a very nice night across Central Illinois. No major issues out there as we take a look. That is our camera indicator looking towards what is known as the Castle in the Cornfields building here in Decatur. You can see that there. Let's go ahead and recap today for the high temperature. Made it up to 70 degrees when we come back. More about this beautiful weather, how long it lasts, and when some storms can move in, coming up next.